It was meant to be nothing more than a cruel prank. The kind of heartless game played by entitled young men who believe the world exists purely for their amusement. Inside a bustling country club bar, laughter rang out from a corner table where a group of wealthy men lounged, their designer suits barely containing the arrogance that came with unearned fortune. Among them sat Daniel Crawford, 32, a self-made millionaire many times over, or so he liked to think. His smile was polished to perfection, a weapon as sharp as it was charming. That night, surrounded by expensive whiskey and inflated egos, someone threw out a challenge that sent the table roaring with laughter. I dare you to marry her. 6 months. Keep a straight face. Prove you can handle it. Bet you can't. She was Leela, a quiet, plus-sized waitress who worked in the back kitchen of the club's less glamorous dining area. She was invisible to men like them. Mocked for her looks, dismissed for her simplicity. Caught in the haze of alcohol and bravado, Daniel smirked. You're on, he said. And just like that, a bet was made. One that would change every life in that room forever. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that reveal the beauty hidden in ordinary people, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to Stories of Kindness. Your support helps us keep bringing heartfelt, real stories to life. Daniel knew almost nothing about Leela when he first approached her. She lived in a tiny studio above a laundromat in a rough neighborhood. Her clothes were plain, her shoes worn. But her eyes held something extraordinary. A quiet strength. The kind that comes from surviving too much and giving up too little. When Daniel asked her out, Leela didn't believe him at first. Men like him didn't notice women like her. But Daniel was persistent, charming when he chose to be. And eventually, she agreed to meet for coffee. In those early weeks, Daniel played his part like an actor. He listened just enough, smiled at the right moments, and pretended to care. To his friends, every date was entertainment, a story to report back with a smirk. But when Leela spoke, something unexpected stirred in him. She told stories about raising her younger siblings after her mother's death, about working 2 jobs in high school to keep the lights on, about volunteering at the shelter every weekend because, as she said, no one should ever feel forgotten. Her voice carried no bitterness, only grace. Daniel brushed off the strange feeling in his chest, convincing himself it was curiosity, nothing more. Then came the night everything began to change. It was a rainy Thursday when Daniel offered Leela a ride home after her shift. Her building had lost power, and in the flickering hallway light, he noticed a hand-drawn calendar taped to the wall, filled with reminders for food pantry pickups, birthdays, and little notes of encouragement. It wasn't for her. It was for everyone in the building. Leela had made it herself so the elderly neighbors wouldn't forget important dates. No one had asked her to. No one had paid her. She just cared. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about how she'd smiled at Mrs. Grant, the nearly blind woman in apartment 3B, and how she quietly handed her a warm meal before helping a young mother with her groceries. None of it was for show. She didn't even know he was watching. Over the following weeks, cracks began to form in Daniel's polished facade. He stopped meeting his friends after dates. He stopped sending updates altogether. He began truly listening when she spoke, and he noticed how he felt when he was around her. Leela didn't want his money, his status, or his approval. She saw through the suits and the sports cars. She saw him, just Daniel. But the bet hung over him like a storm cloud. He hadn't told her, and the guilt was poison. Every laugh, every kindness twisted the knife deeper. The breaking point came the night he proposed. He had planned it as the grand finale, the proof he'd won. A lavish dinner, a diamond ring, a perfect photo to show his friends. But when Leela walked in, wearing a simple blue dress and that shy, luminous smile, something inside him broke. This wasn't a game anymore. He loved her. And that terrified him. They married in a small church, surrounded by Leela's neighbors and a handful of relatives. Daniel's so-called friends were there too, smirking in the back pews, waiting for the punchline. But Daniel didn't hear them. All he heard was Leela's voice as she promised to love him through sickness and health, through riches and ruin. She meant every word. 2 months later, the truth surfaced. One of Daniel's friends, drunk at a charity gala, let the secret slip to a reporter. The story exploded. Headlines branded Daniel as a heartless millionaire who'd humiliated his own wife. Leela didn't scream. She didn't throw things or demand answers. She packed a small bag and left. Daniel found her days later, scrubbing floors at the community shelter. Back where she'd always been, helping others. Her eyes, once soft and open to him, were now distant. He begged her to listen. He told her the bet had ended long before he asked her to marry him. That his love was real. But Leela simply said, "Love built on lies isn't love at all." For weeks, Daniel tried to prove himself. He donated to the shelter, volunteered daily, even moved into her old neighborhood. He helped with repairs, ran errands, and stayed silent. But it wasn't until he secretly paid for Mrs. Grant's eye surgery, without telling a soul, that Leela began to believe him again. It wasn't a grand gesture or a public apology that won her back. It was quiet, steady kindness. The kind that matched her own. Slowly, she let him back into her life. And, over time, into her heart. Years later, as they renewed their vows in that same little church, Daniel looked at her through tears and whispered, "The bet was the worst mistake of my life. But loving you was the best." And in that moment, everyone in the room knew. They had beaten the odds. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to Stories of Kindness. Your support helps us continue telling stories of compassion, forgiveness, and redemption. And before you go, tell us in the comments, what do you believe is the truest sign of real love?